they're looking to the platform.
Yeah.
To the people on the platform. Have you ever seen the army with their back to the enemy? In actual fact, looking to the platform when they should be looking outwards.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Instead of looking to those on the platform to get blessed, to get whatever, but they don't get empowered.
Yeah, as I say,
that's the problem.
As I say, I think the importance is, I do sense your frustration, but I think what we need to do, one thing that I'm trying to encourage my new churches is in testimony. That's right. In those within the church sharing, within the church structure, sharing the things that God's doing. Because through that we get an excitement. You know, one of the things that's really hard to express to any congregation is the fact that by not going out sharing your faith, you're missing out on amazing blessings. And many people that have invited me to speak say, you seem to have so many anecdotes, so many stories of these things. And I'm saying, but that's what excites me, and that's what you need to get part of. And I think it's not about telling them that, you know, you should be doing this. It's encouraging them. Right. So through that, I would say.
Well, Reggie, thank you very much for your call.
Yeah,
you're in London, are you, Reggie? Where in London are you, brother?
I'm in Canning Town.
Amen.
Canning Town.
Can I just ask one more question?
It has to be quick, yeah.
Okay, well, listen, I'll speak to you again.
No, go ahead, Reggie. What's your question, brother?
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's gone. It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think you raised lots and lots of questions, and I hope John was able to answer you. But we want also tell you, don't let your head go down.
No.
Amen.
And always keep it up, because God has called you.
Amen.
If you can, there is an incredible story of George of Jenner Street in Australia, who was a guy who was just a street preacher, who went around, just giving the impact that man had on a global impact. If you go on YouTube, and if you go on George and Jenner Street, and you have a look at that, it's an amazing story of a man, how dedicated to just giving tracts out in the street. An amazing impact the man had from people who were visiting, people who live in that area. So, don't think, sowing seeds is another thing, isn't it?
Amen.
Now, we think of evangelism as reaping. Yeah. But there's a whole area of, I'm talking horticulturally.
Yeah, horticulture.
Would you like to explain that?
And I have to say, as a horticulturalist, as someone who's looked after some very big gardens, when we sow carrot seeds, we sow thousands. And some come up immediately, and some take weeks, some take months. Some different seeds that we sow need to be what we call stratified. In other words, they need to go into a fridge for 2 weeks, and then we sow them. Everyone is different. But if we don't sow the seeds, then we shouldn't be looking for the harvest. One thing that I've talked to many churches about is, we're great at wanting the reward. We want the harvest. But we're pretty poor at doing the groundwork. I know in many gardens I've been involved with that you need to get in there and rip the briars out and get the willow saps out and get the land, and it takes a process of hard work. And we as Christians cannot expect just to walk in there and see the harvest. We have to put in the groundwork.
But you see, that's exactly it. Sometimes you may sow the seed, and you may water the seed.
Yeah.
That's all you are asked to do.
Yeah.
Don't try and dig it up before it's done anything.
No.
Sometimes you have to have the patience and the wisdom to do that and to walk away from a person, rather than trying to get them planted and watered and reaped on the same day. It's not going to happen.
And we have to look at our agenda. As humans, we have incredibly devious agendas, because why do we want to see this harvest? Because we want to go on a glory trail? Because we want to say, amen, brother, look how many people have come to the Lord through my ministry. Actually, I always think of Albert Macon.
Yes.
He was the guy who told Billy Graham about the Lord. And if that was the only person he told about the Lord, amen, what a harvest, So we have to look at our heart, our agenda, because that's what God's looking at.
This is God's way, isn't it?
Amen.
Amen. Now, Andrew on the line. Hi, Andrew. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Tom.
What would you like to say?
Just to say that we're very encouraged by what John is saying.
Thank you.
My wife and I, Jean and I, have just moved to a new area and into a new situation, and we feel God has called us here, and what we've been doing so far is buying Christian newspapers and taking them around from door to door, and if we meet somebody, obviously we have a chat with them and get to know people. And we've actually, quite interestingly, this Christian newspaper that we get this month has got an article about our daughter who was shot in South Africa.
Oh, really?
We're using that as an opportunity.
Is this a recent event, Andrew?
It happened about 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, right.
Really?
Okay.
Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, she works for Ambassadors in Sport.
Okay.
In South Africa, in Cape Town, and she goes into prisons and homeless shelters and schools and all sorts of other places, and gets a group of girls together and does some football coaching, and then does a sort of shares from the word afterwards. And she also gets involved in organising football matches and things like that. But she was taking some girls home one evening, and she stopped at a crossroads, traffic lights, and suddenly saw these 2 or 3 young men running towards her. Next thing she saw was one poking a gun at her through the window. So she turned around and told the girls to get out of the car. And as she turned back again, this chap fired the pistol, went through the door window and into her face. She sort of eventually got out of the car and ran down the road shouting, "Get me an ambulance." So all sorts of things went through her mind, but she said, "I was never really scared. It was just, look out, I might be dying." So, fortunately, in God's plan, the police arrived just at that time, which is quite surprising, really, in South Africa. But they stopped the kids getting the car, because that's what was after. They were after the car. They wanted to hijack her car. So they caught the lads and obviously arrested them and sorted the car out. We obviously had to fly over there and see her. But about a couple of years later, she went to their trial, and at the end of the trial, when they were found guilty, the judge asked her what she thought should be their punishment. And she stood up. She said, "Well, I know the background these kids come from. She said, so all I can say to them is get back to school and study and get some qualifications."
Wow, that's amazing.
Right.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And,
I would love to have her on the program.
Yes, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Would you drop us a line?
I will, yes.
Andrew, thank you very much for sharing that, because it just shows that the reason I asked you to share that, it just shows that you're still a believer.
Oh, yes.
And you love the Lord, and here you are talking to us after seeing something like that going through. A lot of people get put off by that. They will say, "Why did it happen?" and all kinds of questions. But sometimes we need to, as we receive God's blessings, we are also told to receive that which is whatever happens to us, giving thanks in all things. And this is a difficult thing to do. But the fact of the matter is that you are sharing this with us. And again, you are talking about how to take this gospel into your area that you.
That's right, yes.
And you want John to come back to you on that?
If you want to, if he's got anything to say.
Sorry, you want to say anything? Because we just caught up with a story. You want anything else to add to what you were saying?
Oh, the story, sorry. No, that's obviously she had to go through a course of treatment in hospital.
Sure.
But she's fine now. She's 100%.
Give our regards and love to her.
I will, yes.
But again, you're talking about going to this area that you come in. Can you disclose the area you are talking about?
It's North Norfolk.
Okay.
One of the villages in North Norfolk.
Right. So again, first of all, we will say, before I ask John we will pray for you, and that we'll continue to pray that God will give you strategy. Because you've got to find out what God is doing in an area before you jump in and do things. God may have been doing things. It'd be good to explore some of the things that have been happening. Look around and dig into history a little bit to find out what God has been doing there, and then ask the Lord to literally join the Lord in what He wants to do in that area. Does that make sense, John? Andrew? Okay, John, you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't think some people recognise the power of putting good news, newspapers through the door. What I'm saying is news that's good and wholesome. And I think one thing we need to bear